In this video, we're going to be reviewing Renfield and making a bloody good cocktail fittingly named Dracula Blood. Today, on the Martini Shot. Hello and welcome to the Martini Shot, home of movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails. My name is Brandon. Before we get into the review, let's sink our teeth into a devilishly classy cocktail I've named Dracula Blood. And hey, if you enjoy movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails, be sure to leave a like and hit subscribe if you'd like to help support the channel. In Renfield, Dracula's blood holds the power to heal mortal wounds and even bring people back from the dead. And while we tend to see it in a pitcher in the film, I've decided to lean into the gothic class of the Count by trying to replicate a martini glass filled with blood and eyeballs Dracula enjoys at one point in the film. To do this, we are going to be making a nice, smooth, classy cocktail using some red port wine, a little bit of rye whiskey, and some Lillet Blanc. And for the eyeballs, I've decided to take some big ice spheres, throw a little blueberry in them so it kind of looks like a pupil. You can definitely use some more decorative eyeballs or even some gummy eyeballs, but I think for this type of drink, I like the practicality of having it be the ice, so that's what I'm going with. All right, let's go ahead and jump into it. This is going to be a stirred cocktail, so go ahead and get your mixing glass ready. First, we're going to be starting with some citrus in the form of lemon juice, and you're going to be doing ½ ounce. And you may be wondering, Brandon, you always say if you're using juices or citrus, you should shake it. So why are you stirring this cocktail? Well, there's actually kind of a good reason. So when you're shaking anything with fruit juices in it, it really helps to make those flavors a lot more brighter, a lot more bigger. But here, I'm kind of just wanting more of a hint of lemon rather than the full-on flavor coming through and turning this into more of a sour. So that's why I'm stirring it. It's not going to make it as bold, but there's still going to be a hint of it there, which is definitely what I'm going for. All right, so now for our alcohol, let's go ahead and start with that red port wine. If you don't know, port wine is basically just kind of like a dessert wine. It's a lot more sweeter, usually drank after dinner, and we're going to be doing 1 ounce. Next, we're going to be doing some Lillet Blanc. This is going to make the drink a little bit lighter than you would expect, and you're going to be doing 1 ounce. And now for my main spirit, I'm going to be using a rye whiskey. I decided just to have that in there just as a little extra kick. I found with other whiskeys it kind of falls under the radar, but because rye has a little bit more of a spice to it, it kind of comes through a bit more, and so that's why I'm rolling with it. And you're going to do 1 ounce. All right, let's get ice in our mixer and stir to chill. And now for serving the drink, you're going to be wanting to do it in a martini glass. You can go the stemmed route, but I found this nice little not stemmed martini glass, so I figured I'd go ahead and use it and kind of mix up the glassware I usually use on the show. And now for our ice eyeballs. I would probably recommend making these a little bit smaller if you have a smaller mold. This is just all I had on hand at the moment. And there you go, now you have a glass of Dracula Blood. A bit of a unique looking cocktail, but this one is very rich. You get that slight hint of citrus from not only the lemon juice, but also the Lillet Blanc. It's a really nice flavor pairing. It's not as heavy as if you were just drinking the port wine by itself. It has a little bit of a lightness to it, and also a little bit of a bite thanks to that rye whiskey we have in there. So yeah, this is a simple and fun one to make, and of course you don't have to do the ice eyeballs, but I like the little extra flair it gives. Now that we have our drink, let's jump straight into the review of Renfield. It's been a while since vampires have really dominated pop culture like they did back in the 2000s. The same could be said for old Dracula too. The days of Universal and Hammer films are unfortunately far behind us, and Dracula hasn't really found a way to find the same success since then. Sure, there's things like Hotel Transylvania, but nothing to really satiate the Dracula fan club looking for some bloody good fun. The character needed some revitalization, and who better to help with that than a man fairly familiar with vampires, Nicolas Cage. In truth, it's the casting I never knew I wanted, evident by the film's opening montages recreating scenes from the 1931 film with Cage in Bela Lugosi's spot. Cage looks the part and has the gravitas for the role, so I was fairly interested in a film that not only gave Cage this opportunity, but has also created an interesting pseudo-sequel of sorts to that 1931 film. Renfield follows the titular character, a former real estate agent who gets coerced into becoming Dracula's loyal servant, helping him over the decades with his murderous tendencies. Now in the modern day, the unaged Renfield grows longing for a normal life free of the vampire lord's grasps. After meeting a headstrong cop trying to take down a local crime syndicate, Renfield hopes to use his Dracula-bestowed superpowers to break free and help become a modern-day hero. So this is essentially a action, horror, comedy, and it occasionally nails the genre melding. The aforementioned Cage as Dracula is great campy fun, while Nicholas Hoult does a decent job enough as the titular protagonist. So it's such a shame that the film fails its multiple genres more often than it succeeds through them. With grating comedy, a heavy use of digital blood, and a ham-fisted commentary on codependence, keeps the film from being the off-the-wall concept film it could have been. The film was very up and down for me from the beginning. Like I said, it starts with those scene recreations, but they're basically used as a big exposition dump that's kicked off with a, "Yeah, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got here." It really made me wish more of the movie was spent showing and expanding upon the relationship between Renfield and Dracula, rather than trying to quickly condense it so it can get to the main plot. Thankfully, the film does pick up once it settles into the story, leading to some admittedly good comedy and action. Cage and Holt's interactions are pretty fun, and Renfield's dilemma is given a fairly fun modern twist by framing it around modern discussions of codependency and toxic relationships. This theme becomes heavier and heavier as the film progresses, and it becomes just a bit too forced. It could have just been played for comedy, but it becomes more apparent that the film is trying to have a message that just doesn't really work. Luckily, the comedy and action tend to keep things going, due in part to a fantastic performance from Ben Schwartz as Mafia Mama's boy Teddy Lobo, giving an R-rated, unhinged spin on John Ralphio. Who really should have been funnier here, though, is Awkwafina, someone who I think gets a lot of unnecessary hate. I could just be a huge The Farewell supporter. Her role as a vengeful cop fighting back against a department full of dirty cops doesn't give her a lot of room to do what she's good at, while her story feels a bit too shoehorned in when more focus could have gone towards Renfield and Dracula's dynamic. Like I said before, the film is an amalgamation of different genres, never really nailing one completely, but coming close enough to make the film at least palatable. As a horror film, it's not exactly scary, though it does remind me a lot of 80s horror films in color and aesthetic. It definitely aims for the campy route, which I think it nails thanks to its lead performances and over-the-top uses of gore. This leads into the action scenes, which more often than not are filled with severed limbs, decapitated heads, and a whole lot of blood. Digital blood, that is. On one hand, it leans into the cartoonish nature of the story, but at the same time, it almost feels like it's not even there. Renfield will literally make a guy explode in front of him, and he comes out without a single drop on him. Maybe that's just another vampire ability he forgot to mention. Luckily, these fight scenes are shot with such a high energy that reverberates throughout the scene without taking away from the choreography. The fake-looking gore is both a plus and a minus depending on how you look at it. For me, I just wanted a bit more stains, you know? Somehow, this barely 90-minute film manages to really drag as the film enters its climax. The action isn't as enticing as before, and the comedy really seemed to take a nosedive. The story unfortunately becomes overstuffed, trying to juggle both the crime thriller side story and the blow-off between Dracula and Renfield, culminating with the film once again hammering in its message to the point where I would have been fine if this element was either a one-time joke or just omitted. Even if the fun comes in growingly smaller doses as the film goes on, the performances and over-the-top action lend the film some decently memorable moments. I just wish the film could have been a bit more consistent, deciding to focus more on the more interesting relationship between Dracula and Renfield while abandoning the uninteresting police procedural side story. While occasionally feeling like the diet version of a mainstream superhero film, I'm all for more solid horror icon recasting. Get Jason Momoa as the Wolfman and Steve Buscemi as the creature from the Black Lagoon, and the dark universe is back in business, baby. For my rating, I'm giving this film 2.5 cloves of garlic out of 5. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Martini Shot. If you saw Renfield, let me know what you thought about it down in the comments. And if you like what you saw here and would like to see more, don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me across all social media channels. Those links are down in the description below. If you enjoy movie reviews and movie-themed cocktails, be sure to check out my website, martinishot.blog. Until next time, thank you again for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Live deliciously, but please remember to drink responsibly. Thank you.